Let me ask you something, and I need you to answer it honestly. What is actually wrong with your life right now? In this exact moment as you sit here, not tomorrow, not next week, not the conversation you're dreading or the outcome you're fearing. Right now, in this present second dot, for most of you, nothing. Nothing is actually wrong right now. And yet your mind is in a full state of emergency. Your chest is tight. Your thoughts are racing. Your peace is gone. And the most extraordinary thing about it is that reality didn't do that to you. Your imagination did do it. You woke up this week and handed your mind no instructions, and so your mind went to work on its own. And it did not build you a vision. It did not construct opportunity. It built you a problem, then another, until you were drowning in catastrophes that don't have addresses, don't have names, and don't have dates because they don't exist. This is the conversation we are having today. And if you have ever lost sleep over something that never happened, if you have ever talked yourself out of peace that was rightfully yours, if you have ever started a brand new week already exhausted from living inside your own head, then this was made for you. Do not move, do not skip, do not look away, because what you are about to hear has the potential to give you back something. Anxiety has been stealing from you for far too long. There is a person reading this right now who went to bed last night already dreading this morning. Not because something terrible happened, not because a real crisis landed on your doorstep, but because your mind took the raw material of possibility and built a prison out of it. You constructed walls out of what if. You furnished the room with worst case scenarios. You lay down in a bed of imaginary outcomes and called it rest, and then wondered why you woke up exhausted. That is not living. That is mental labor without a paycheck. That is working overtime in a factory that produces nothing real. The human mind was never designed to carry the weight of every possible future simultaneously. It was designed for clarity, for focus, for purposeful engagement with what is actually in front of you. But when left without direction, without discipline, without a governing vision, it does not rest, it wanders. And a wandering mind does not wander into peaceful territory. It wanders into fear, it wanders into regret, it wanders into conversations that haven't happened, outcomes that haven't occurred, and losses that haven't taken place. You are exhausting yourself on events that do not yet exist and may never exist. This is the quiet crisis that nobody talks about enough. The person who appears fine on the outside but is fighting a war on the inside that nobody declared and nobody can see. You smile in public and spiral in private. You function in the natural while your inner world is in a constant state of emergency. And the most painful part is that you cannot point to a single real thing that broke you, because nothing real broke you. Your own imagination did. Understand this with everything in you. Worry is not wisdom. Anxiety is not preparation. Overthinking is not due diligence. These are not virtues dressed in caution. They are fear dressed in the language of responsibility. When you tell yourself, I'm just being realistic, examine that honestly, because there is a significant difference between realistic thinking and repetitive catastrophizing. One assesses the situation and moves. The other assesses the situation, then assesses it again, then again, until assessment becomes paralysis, and paralysis becomes your permanent address. Your undisciplined mind is not your ally, it is your adversary. This is not an insult. This is one of the most liberating truths you will ever encounter, because the moment you recognize that your own unguarded thought life can work against you, you will stop treating every thought that enters your mind as though it deserves a throne. Not every thought that comes to you comes for you. Some thoughts arrive as intruders. Some arrive as distractions. Some arrive carrying the voice of old wounds, old failures, old voices that told you that you were not enough, that things would never work out, that the worst is always yet to come. And if you do not develop the discipline to interrogate those thoughts, to examine them, challenge them, and where necessary, reject them, they will govern your life more effectively than any external force ever could. Your greatest battles are not happening in your circumstances. They are happening in your cognition. The enemy of your destiny is not always a person, a situation, or an environment. Often it is a pattern of thought that you have never confronted, never challenged, and never refused. A thought pattern that has been running on autopilot for so long that it feels like personality, feels like truth, feels like just the way things are. But it is not truth. It is a habit. And habits can be broken. The mind that is not submitted to discipline will submit to fear by default. It will find something to worry about, because worry for an undisciplined mind feels like productivity. It feels like you are doing something, but you are not doing something. You are simply suffering in advance for problems that may never require your suffering at all. This is where many people get it wrong. They wear their overthinking like a badge. They call it being thorough. They call it being careful. They call it thinking things through. And so they never confront it, never challenge it, never call it by its real name, because they have convinced themselves that the person who worries the most is the person who cares the most. But caring and catastrophizing are not the same thing. Diligence and dread are not the same thing. Thoughtfulness and torment are not the same thing. Overthinking at its root is not an intellectual exercise. It is an emotional one. It is what the mind does when trust has broken down. Trust in the process you are in. Trust in your own ability to handle what comes. Trust in the idea that not everything requires your constant mental intervention to hold itself together. When you truly trust a process, you engage it and then release it. You do what is yours to do and then you rest. But when trust is absent, you cannot release anything. You hold everything. You grip every outcome, every relationship, every decision with white-knuckled mental force, because somewhere deep inside, you believe that the moment you stop thinking about it, something will go wrong. And that belief is the very thing destroying your peace. There is a kind of arrogance buried inside chronic overthinking that we rarely name. The subtle belief that your worry is somehow holding things together, that your anxiety is performing a function, that if you stop rehearsing the disaster will actually come. But your worry has never prevented a single outcome. It has never redirected a single circumstance. It has never built a single thing worth building. All it has ever done is cost you the present moment while pretending to protect your future. Overthinking is also a sign of a deeper wound. The wound of feeling that you are not safe, that the world is unpredictable in ways you cannot survive, that you must always be 3 steps ahead, because being caught off guard is the most dangerous thing that could happen to you. Many people who overthink grew up in environments where unpredictability was painful, where things changed without warning, where stability was never guaranteed. And so the mind learned to scan constantly, to anticipate constantly, to never fully settle, because settling felt like vulnerability and vulnerability felt like danger. But you are not in that season anymore, and yet your mind is still running the same program. There is a profound and necessary difference between preparation and panic, and confusing the two is costing people their entire lives. Preparation is intentional, it is focused, it identifies what is real, assesses what is needed, and takes clear, deliberate action. Preparation has a beginning and it has an end. It moves you forward and then releases you to walk in the direction you have chosen. Preparation is the activity of a disciplined mind that respects both the challenge ahead and its own capacity to meet it. Panic is something else entirely. Panic is preparation without an exit. It is assessment without resolution. It is the mind that starts examining a problem and then cannot stop, that circles and circles and circles the same territory without ever landing, without ever deciding, without ever moving. Panic disguises itself as thoroughness, but it produces nothing except exhaustion and delay. And here is what is critical to understand. Panic does not make you more ready. It makes you less ready. Because by the time the moment of action arrives, you have already spent the energy you needed for it. You have burned your fuel on the runway and now wonder why you cannot take off. The person who panics is not more prepared than the person who prepares calmly and moves forward. The person who panics is simply the person who has spent more time suffering before the moment even arrives. Suffering is not a form of readiness. Anguish is not a strategy. Mental torment is not the price you must pay to be taken seriously by life. Action taken from a place of clarity will always outperform action taken from a place of fear. Always. Because clarity sees the path. Fear sees only the obstacles. Clarity asks, How do I move forward? Fear asks, what if I fail? And the mind can only fully pursue one question at a time. There is something deeply significant about the arrival of a new week that most people completely miss because they are too busy carrying last week into it. They walk through the door of a brand new beginning with both arms full of old conclusions, old disappointments, old fears, and old narratives, and then they are surprised when the new week feels exactly like the last one. But the week did not fail them. They failed the week. They refused the reset. Understand what a new week actually represents. It is not merely a calendar rotation. It is not simply the movement of days on a schedule. A new week is an invitation, a deliberate, structured opportunity to begin again, to recalibrate, to set your mind, your intentions, and your energy in a new direction. Every single week you are handed 7 days that have never been lived before. 7 days with no mistakes in them yet. 7 days that have not yet been shaped by failure or fear or disappointment. They are completely open, completely available, completely yours to define. But definition requires intention. And intention requires a mind that has been willing to let go of what the last week concluded about you. This is where so many people are stuck, not in their circumstances, but in their conclusions. Last week, something didn't work out, and your mind concluded that things don't work out for you. Last week, someone disappointed you, and your mind concluded that people always will. Last week, you tried and fell short, and your mind concluded that trying is not worth the risk. And now you stand at the beginning of a new week, carrying those conclusions like luggage, heavy, unnecessary, taking up space that was meant for something far more useful. You cannot think last week's thoughts and live this week's life. The two are incompatible. A new season always demands a new mental framework, not because positive thinking is some mystical force that rearranges reality, but because the lens through which you see your week will determine every decision you make within it. If you enter Monday convinced that nothing will work, you will not pursue opportunities with full commitment. If you begin the week already defeated, you will not fight for what is yours with full strength. Your mindset is not decoration, it is infrastructure. It determines what you build and how you build it. You were created to govern your thought life, not to be imprisoned by it. This is not a small distinction. This is the difference between a person who is living and a person who is merely surviving inside their own head. Governance means authority. Governance means you are in charge. Governance means that when a thought enters your mind, you are the one who determines whether it stays, whether it is examined, whether it is believed, and whether it is acted upon. You were never designed to be a passive recipient of whatever your mind decides to produce. You were designed to be its master. But somewhere along the way, the roles reversed. The mind that was meant to serve your vision began to dictate it. The thought life that was meant to be a tool became a tyrant. And now, instead of your mind working for you, generating ideas, solving problems, creating pathways, you are working for your mind, managing its fears, feeding its anxieties, and organizing your entire life around keeping it comfortable. That is not governance. That is captivity with the illusion of normalcy. And the most dangerous part of mental captivity is that it does not always feel like a prison. It feels like caution. It feels like wisdom. It feels like self-awareness. But real self-awareness does not keep you small. It expands you. Real wisdom does not paralyze you. It directs you. Real caution assesses the risk and then makes a decision and moves. It does not assess the risk endlessly until the opportunity has passed and the moment is gone. You must reclaim the authority over your own inner world. Not aggressively, not through suppression, not by pretending that difficult thoughts do not exist, but through disciplined, consistent, intentional governance. By deciding what you will meditate on. By deciding what narratives you will rehearse. By deciding which voices inside your own head have been granted too much influence for too long and must now be firmly, permanently overruled. Your thought life is the origin point of everything you will ever produce, ever build, ever become. Nothing exists in your external world that did not first exist in your internal one. Which means the quality of your thinking is not a private matter. It is a prophetic one. It determines the quality of your decisions, your relationships, your work, your resilience, and your capacity to walk into the fullness of everything you were placed on this earth to do. And you cannot do any of that from a prison. Even a prison that you built yourself, furnished yourself, and have been living in so long that you forgot the door was never locked. Everything covered in this message traces back to one central truth. Your mind is either your most powerful asset or your most destructive force. And the difference between the two is simply discipline. You are not tired because life is too hard. You are tired because your imagination has been working without supervision, manufacturing problems that don't exist, borrowing pain from futures that haven't arrived, and draining the energy you needed for the life that is actually in front of you right now. Overthinking is not intelligence. It is not preparation. It is not caution. It is a crisis of trust. Trust in yourself. Trust in the process. Trust in your own capacity to handle what comes when it actually comes. And the moment you stop trusting, your mind fills the silence with fear. Panic moves in where peace once lived. And suddenly you are not living your week. You are surviving your own thoughts. But here is what must be settled in your spirit before you leave this message. Preparation and panic are not the same thing. A new week and last week are not the same thing. The person you were inside, that anxiety, and the person you were created to be are not the same thing. You were built to govern. You were built to direct. You were built to walk into every new week with your mind submitted to purpose and your thoughts submitted to truth, not floating, not wandering, not manufacturing disaster in the quiet moments, but building, deciding, moving forward with the kind of clarity that only comes when you stop giving imaginary problems the authority to determine your real life. So as you step into this week and every week that follows, carry this with you. The reset is real. The authority is yours. And the peace you keep waiting for is not somewhere ahead of you waiting to be earned. It was always available. You simply have to choose it.